6:07, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in to Tuesday, July 15th of 2025. Hope you are doing well. Man, we got a lot going on. Hey, by the way, coming up at 7:05, we do have Senator Bill Hagerty. He's going to be joining us. Victoria Coates is a foreign policy analyst with the Heritage Foundation. She'll be joining us at 8:05, and we'll be talking about Donald Trump versus Vladimir Putin. And that is going to be a great conversation as well. And I always appreciate your comments on the Super Text line at 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. All right, so real quickly, and we're not going to belabor the point because I know there's some of you folks that hate this, but there are some developments with Epstein. Some audio making news this morning is Alan Dershowitz actually saying that there is actually no Epstein client list per se.
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women. What there is a redacted FBI affidavit from accusers. There are several of them. From accusers that accuse that accuse various people of having improper sex. And that has been redacted. The names of the people accused have been blacked out. Now, of course, because I was the lawyer and I did all the investigations, I know who all these people are. I could figure out, based on everything that I saw, who Mr. X is, Mr. Y is, and Mr. Z. I can tell you right now, none of them are public figures who are currently in office. Some of them were previously in office. Some of them are dead. But there is no client list. And the redactions could be undone if you go to court.
You know what I think is interesting on this? I think that Alan Dershowitz is really enjoying being the guy that says, I know, but I can't tell you what I know. Because every interview that he's in, he has that to say. And you know what, Dershowitz, being the attorney with Jeffrey Epstein, and of course his name was, linked to the list, if you will, and he had to go out and prove his innocence, and some people don't believe that he's innocent. I wouldn't be so proud, though, if I'm Alan Dershowitz, to know all of the things that he knows about this case. But what he's saying is there is no actual easy list to go over, right? There's no Excel spreadsheet, if you will. So what they do have is a list of accusations from accusers. And you just heard him say, Alan Dershowitz, that there are those that are named that are either retired from politics, they're dead, at least those politicians that might be on the list, either dead or retired from politics, Bill Clinton. He also says that all you have to do is go to court. Well, then, you know what I would ask? Okay, well, then why don't you, Alan Dershowitz, take the ball and run with it? And you work with the people that you work with. And if you so want this information out, and Alan Dershowitz does, well, then work with the Republicans and work with the people that want this released and try to get the information out there. He also, by the way, throws some defense to Donald Trump and Pam Bondi. Listen close.
So many of the things that are being suppressed by two judges in Manhattan, and they're doing it largely to protect the alleged accusers who are, in the view of the judges, victims, even though we don't know what their actual status is. But the judges have issued orders, which is why I can't disclose things I'd love to disclose, saying that you can't disclose this information. But Pam Bondi and the Justice Department and Donald Trump are not responsible for that. I don't know of any information that they could disclose that they haven't disclosed. Now, maybe there is some, but I'm simply not aware of it.
Well, here's the thing. Be that as it may, you also had Pam Bondi talking about how the files were on her desk. You had Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi all speaking ad nauseum about the Epstein files. And I believe that it is those, guest hits on, cable TV or with Dan Bongino, his talk show, whatever. But there's a conversation about these files almost on a daily basis. So there is that. No doubt the Trump administration has been eviscerated by all of this.
And so I think it's important to place the blame where the blame deserves to be placed. The vast majority of people who are in the files, and I know them all, I've seen all the names, the vast majority of them have already been disclosed. They're in articles all over the world. They're in books that have been written. So if we got everything, you would be shocked how few names are there that haven't already been disclosed. The media hasn't, by the way, done a good enough job in finding the people who have been disclosed in the public record. So that's that list.
And the Daily Mail, by the way, is pointing out and reporting that the Justice Department will not be allowing Ghislaine Maxwell off the hook. She will remain in prison. Her lawyers argued and have been arguing that Epstein's plea deal back in 2008 meant that she herself should have never been put on trial. But again, the Justice Department disagrees. Also word that she is ready and willing to speak in front of Congress. But so far, nothing. And I would ask, of course, why not? This is a Democrat, Representative Ro Khanna. Here's what he has to say about it.
Mr. Speaker, I introduced today an amendment demanding the full release of the Epstein files. The Speaker's Rules Committee should demand a vote tomorrow of every member of Congress. Yes, we should release it, or no, we should not. This is a question of whose side are you on? Are you on the side of protecting the rich and the powerful who've put their thumb on the scales of government to suck out millions of dollars while working class Americans suffer? Or are you on the side of the people?
So you hear what's going on, right? So the Democrats, they clearly see that this is an issue within the Republican Party. And it really is. I mean, and I've been talking about this for a long time, where there is a clear divide. But, you know, for Ro Khanna and the Democrats, you know, where were you when you had the majorities in the House, the Senate? It was 50-50. Then you had Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker. You had Joe Biden in the White House. So where were you, Ro Khanna, when all of this was going on during the years of Joe Biden? I mean, it's a fair question to ask. The only reason the Democrats want this released now is because they're trying to fan the flames, right? They're trying to throw gasoline on the fire of this massive Republican train wreck. And it is a train wreck.
The Attorney General said on her desk was the Epstein file. And now she's saying, no, nothing to see. Don't release it. This is a question of trust. We need to release the Epstein files so we can restore government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And every member of Congress tomorrow should be forced to vote on this amendment.
So, and by the way, there is some late breaking news on this story for the people that want this information released. Well, it may just happen. We'll talk about that straight ahead. 6:15, time to check the roads on WTN. All right, very good. 6:16, Nashville's Morning News. As far as your weather for today, high of 93, possible thunderstorms again. And appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. So a couple of things going on with the Epstein files. This is something that the Republicans have always been angry about, and that is that America today, it does seem like there is no justice, right? So we have weak George Soros-type district attorneys who simply refuse to prosecute bad guys. We've had 4 years of Joe Biden and his illegal aliens coming into our country, committing crimes, then getting away with it. And now we have the Trump administration basically telling us nothing to see here, as all of these pedos, frankly, are getting away with passing around young girls. And no, I'm not forgetting about the accusations that this was some sort of a government blackmail operation dealing with Israel. So that is also out there. Now, Megyn Kelly, and I played this audio yesterday, there was Turning Point USA, big, massive event that they had in Tampa, Florida, And this was over the weekend, and Megyn Kelly was up there, and Megyn Kelly is all about putting the information out there, and she was up on stage.
Make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
Raise your hand if it matters a lot to you. Raise your hand. So every hand of 7,000 people.
Everybody cares.
A lot. I said a lot. Every hand.
Yeah, and so you had 7,000 people, and so one of the things that Megyn Kelly said is, listen, this is a situation that can very easily be remedied.
Come out and give a press conference. Stand there for 6 hours to the point where people are dying of boredom. They've asked all their questions.
Yep.
That's how you put a scandal to rest. Mm-hmm. But she wouldn't even sign her name to it. And I'm telling you, I have dollars to donuts. It's going to come out that there was internal consternation over that memo, and whose name did and did not go on it, and who was and was not behind it.
That is, of course, Megyn Kelly speaking of Pam Bondi. By the way, so everybody was on Bongino watch. Remember this? Everybody's like, oh, Dan Bongino's going to quit, right? So apparently Bongino was in his office yesterday, and he was working on something very important, as Donald Trump said. So apparently Bongino and Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, they've all circled the wagons, it would appear, and they're all going to try to trudge forward. Now, what is the very latest on this? Well, the information may very well be made public. This is Benny Johnson, and he says that the attitude inside the White House has actually changed quite a bit.
Everything's changed. So I spent the entire afternoon talking with federal law enforcement sources, and everything has changed. The attitude towards full disclosure, towards a special counsel, towards Pam Bondi having a unlimited press conference and maybe a recurring press conference on this, towards various investigators going out with their work, towards the unsealing of all of the evidence that may be boring, maybe pedantic, but is something that the American public wants and is would be a promise kept by the Trump administration. All of that evidence is currently under seal in the Southern District of New York. It belongs to the DOJ. The DOJ can unseal it at any time. There's been a massive movement, Emily. I can report that on your show first and exclusively towards massive disclosure. And a lot of this is because of what happened this weekend in Tampa, Florida, where I live, with Student Action Summit, Turning Point USA, where you had the likes of everyone from Steve Bannon to Megyn Kelly to Tucker Carlson calling for these releases. I myself called for the release on stage, and the cheers were uproarious.
So there you go. And so maybe at some point, sometime soon, we'll either get unlimited press conferences, we'll get all of the info and all the intel just dumped onto a website. Maybe there will be a special counsel. We'll have to see what happens. But it does seem like the attitude is changing within the Trump administration. It is 6:21 on Nashville's Morning News. By the way, Democrats apparently are gunning for the 5th and the 7th congressional districts here in Middle Tennessee. We're going to talk about that straight ahead. Right now, Joan Jones has the news at 6:30. Joan. 6:37, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Yes, indeed, the Democrats are eyeing the 5th and the 7th congressional districts. Let's get into this because, and I know that this, some of y'all might be like, oh, this is so politically wonky. This is really important. The House of Representatives is really, really critical, and the Democrats are going to dump millions of dollars into these seats. The Nashville Banner writes that, yes, the Democrats even say that Tennessee could become a swing state. So just in the last several months, we've had Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, and Ilhan Omar all coming to Nashville because they want to flip these seats. This is from the Banner. I'm going to read just a little bit of it and then give you my perspective. Part of this influx comes from a guy named Ken Martin, the new DNC chair, who wants to redirect campaign money and resources to the South over the next decade. See, the problem is that for the Democrats is, the South, and you've got a lot of Republicans here, but you also have a lot of these Democrats that have been moving to the states like Tennessee, states like Georgia, states like Florida as well. So they're thinking that if they have enough Democrats moving to these states, then they could try flipping some of those congressional seats. And the Democrats want to drop a bunch of money into the state of Tennessee. They say Tennessee's sudden relevance with national Democrats stems from a pair of potentially flippable congressional seats on the ballot over the next year and a half, and census data that centers the South in future presidential elections. This guy Martin says we cannot keep ignoring states like Tennessee. If we do, we're going to be on the wrong side of things. So they're looking at flipping the 7th, which, of course, Mark Green's district, and the 5th, which is Andy Ogle's district. The Banner writes this about the 7th. The Republicans' big, beautiful bill, which passed this month, slashing Medicaid, SNAP, and other federal resources, may, they say, may tip the scales even further towards Democrats as Trump loses ground with low-income voters and all of the Republicans to join the race for Green's 7th district seat so far are Trump loyalists. So I don't know if Donald Trump is losing ground with low-income voters. And I don't know if the Nashville Banner, I don't know, is the Nashville Banner, Joan, you ever read it? I don't know if the Nashville Banner is actually, tilts to the left or whatever. Somebody told me somewhere that it actually used to, anyway, lean more to the right. But that's all beside the point. Donald Trump losing ground with low-income voters, I just don't know if that's true. But I think you do have some good conservatives running in the 7th congressional district. I mean, I've had several of them on my show. So good conservatives running in the 7th. Each and every one, by the way, are loyalists to Donald Trump. The reason I would say the Nashville Banner, I think they're a little off the mark on this, is because Donald Trump within the Republican Party is extremely popular. And there's a lot of Republicans in the 7th. Mark Green won by, I'm not going to call it a landslide, but he really won handily there in the 7th congressional district. Now, the Democrats that are running, Afton Bain and Bo Mitchell, so far, both from Nashville, announcing their candidacy for the seat. There will no doubt be others on both sides. And by the way, there's, I'm sure, a lot of other folks running for the 7th. I've interviewed 3 of them. And I know that Murphy Show, I think he has some on as well. So we'll have to wait and see. But bottom line is here for turnout is everything. Do not get complacent. Because as you know, the House of Representatives is critical. And we get a couple of, we let them flip a couple of seats here in Tennessee because we don't want to turn out, because we're mad at the Epstein files not being released. Because that's what people are saying. This is why the Democrats are making such a big deal about the Epstein files, because they know that there are some people on our side of the aisle, on the Republican side of the aisle, that are going to say, oh, heck no, I'm not going to go out and vote in the midterm elections. They didn't release the Epstein files, right? I mean, there's people that actually have that mentality. I hope that you're not one of them. Because while I do understand that you may be angry and upset that we haven't, gotten the Epstein files released, think about what the Democrats will do. Think about the open borders. Think about the rampant crime. Think about all of the things that Joe Biden and the Democrats did when they had the power. I understand being upset about the Epstein files. We'll have to see where that whole thing goes. But this is why the Democrats are talking about this. This is why the Democrats are making such a big deal about this, because ultimately what they're trying to do with their rhetoric on the Epstein files is suppress the vote in the midterm elections. Andy Ogle's 5th Congressional District. Andy, of course, has had his fair share of controversies. Here's what this guy Martin says about that. We're looking for authenticity, being bold, being unapologetic, and fighting for something, not fighting against something, Martin says. Boy, that sounded like a big old cliche, doesn't it? This is, they say, Nashville Banner, this is doubly true in Tennessee's 5th Congressional District, where Democrats are planning to target Representative Andy Ogles in his regular election next year. They say that Ogles has done everything but focus on that. Martin says, condemning Ogles for losing touch with his district. I don't know if he's lost touch with his district because, I mean, I've called him a kiss ass a couple of times, but he is still extremely conservative. Guy says it's never easy in a district like the 5th, but it is certainly easier with someone like Andy Ogles, who has completely put his oath and fealty to Donald Trump ahead of the people that elected him. I don't believe that's true. I mean, you can say, all right, come on, dude. Really? Trump isn't even done with his second term yet, and you want to put him up there on Mount Rushmore? Or, you know, give Donald Trump a third term? Come on, right? I mean, that's what I mean. It's a little ridiculous to me. So I have had my issues with Ogles, but I think here's the deal. Anything that Andy Ogles is going to do is going to be far better than the Democrats. I mean, that is absolutely the case. Because you know what? Thing about Andy is he also voted incredibly conservative and is someone who defends Donald Trump at every turn. That's not a bad thing. And I'd rather have Ogles in there clearly than some knuckle-dragging Democrat who clearly we have no idea what they're going to do, but obviously it would be anti-Donald Trump at every turn. So Ogles has been consistent, if nothing else. And so I appreciate the conservatism. I could deal with a bit less of the, arse kissing. But if the Democrats think that is a flippable seat, if Andy Ogles is the candidate, and I haven't heard of anybody who is going to come out. I don't think, has anybody come out, Joan? Do you know this? Has anybody come out on the Republican side and said that they're going to actually primary Andy Ogles? I know that there's been a lot of talk about it, but I don't think that anybody has actually come out and said that they're going to do that. And I think part of that is, Donald Trump. I mean, clearly Ogles is going to have, in my opinion now, maybe I'm wrong, but going to have a lot of people that are going to look at the fact that Ogles clearly will end up getting Trump's endorsement. And for the state of Tennessee, I think that is something that absolutely will work in Ogles' favor. Got a little bit more on this straight ahead. Oh, by the way, coming up, the Democrats have no place to talk about the Republicans losing support. Have you folks looked in the mirror, Democrats? Well, we know Afton Bain does. 6:46, time to check the roads on WTN. As far as your weather for today, a high of 93, possible thunderstorms as well. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So I love how, because there's all kinds of articles out there right now about how they say that Donald Trump is deeply unpopular. I don't know if you've seen that, but that is really the narrative these days, is that the deep unpopularity of Donald Trump could spell doom for the Republicans in the midterm elections. And I'm sorry, but I just don't see it. I mean, they can dream, but he does remain very popular in the Republican Party. Donald Trump does. Now, I do believe that the Epstein thing, it is serious, but not enough, in my opinion, not enough to destroy the party. It could have impacts in the House of Representatives, and that is what I'm worried about. Because if you have a bunch of folks who came out to vote for Donald Trump, for the first time, his second run, and they're going to be like, well, you know what? I didn't get the Epstein files, so I'm just not going to bother to come out in the midterm elections. That's going to be a disaster. Because if you, again, want to relive what happened the last time the Democrats had the House of Representatives, they're going to try to impeach Donald Trump, and everything will come screeching to a halt. That's what we cannot let happen. So if you're one of these folks that you're angry about, the release of the Epstein files or the non-release of the Epstein files, and you're not going to come out for the midterm elections, I would ask you to think about the consequences of losing the House of Representatives. There are many real-world consequences to the Democrats gaining control of the House. It's not that far in the distance that we don't remember those open borders, that high inflation rate, the weakness of Joe Biden. And by the way, let's also not forget that the Democrat Party's approval rating right now, according to a new poll, is at like 40%. Republicans are a lot higher. This is from The Hill, a Harvard Caps Harris poll released yesterday found that only 4 in 10 respondents approved of the job that the Democrat Party is doing. By comparison, the same Harvard Caps Harris poll found the GOP with a 48% approval rating, which, by the way, listen to this, includes 85% of Republicans and 38% of independent and other voters who had that sentiment. In other words, the media can try to convince people that Donald Trump and the big, beautiful bill is deeply unpopular, but I just don't believe that that is true. We know that the Democrats try to influence elections, midterm and otherwise, midterm and presidential. We know that they try to manipulate it through their reporting and suppression polls and so forth. But the biggest point is this. Among Democrats, they say that their party is weak, is rudderless, has no leaders. 85% of Republicans approve of what that party is doing. Do you know who sees that? Barack Obama, who said this over the weekend, according to CNN.
He told donors this over the weekend, quote, "I think it's going to require a little bit less navel-gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions," Obama said, according to excerpts of his remarks exclusively obtained by CNN. And it's going to require Democrats to just toughen up.
Well, part of the reason why the Democrat Party is in the state that it's in is because Joe Biden was so incredibly weak. And let's not forget that Barack Obama endorsed Joe Biden. So one of the things that I keep saying is the Democrats, they have their reflective Trump derangement syndrome, right? I keep talking about this reflexive Trump derangement syndrome. And it puts them at odds with the vast majority of the American people, talking about border security, mass deportation, and so forth. I mean, believe it or not, even Mark Cuban gets it. He's been saying this, and this has been something that has been a familiar conversation with Mark Cuban over the years.
It's just Trump sucks. That's the underlying, thought of everything the Democrats do. Trump sucks. Trump says, the sky is blue. Trump sucks. You can't, that's not the way to win. It's just not, because it's not about Trump. It's about the people of the United States of America and what's good for them.
That is absolute truth, and he is spot on. That is, of course, Mark Cuban. Now, watch us on YouTube, Rumble, X, 997WTN.com, and Facebook as well. Any listening app, any app that is out there, you got your TuneIn app, you've got your iHeartRadio app, you, of course, have the WTN app as well. If you want to watch us, you can take the Daily Dan poll as well. Follow me on X at Dan Mandis Show. And we do have Senator Bill Hagerty. He is coming up after the news at 7 right here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7